This is a supplemental video for Vanilla House Pattern 211, Beat the Heat Oven Mitts. Just to let you know, this video is an overview, just touching on some of the main points of the pattern and not a detailed instruction. These have got to be some of my favorite oven mitts ever, and I've designed a few. But these are really easy to make and wonderful to use. I think you're really going to like them. There are only 3 pieces to the oven mitt along with the bias binding trim that goes around the opening. You have the top side of the oven mitt, the underside, and what I call the mouse side of the oven mitt. You have 2 layers of cotton, one on the outside, one on the inside, with a layer of batting in between the two. I like to use a popular batting called Insulbrite. It's a heat reflective batting, but you could use Warm and Natural or any other dense batting. Now it's important to know that you only use 1 layer of batting on the top side and underside, but always use 2 layers of batting in the mouth of the oven mitt, the part that's going to touch the heat source. If you use 2 layers on all of it, sometimes the oven mitt gets so thick it's hard to sew on a home sewing machine. The seams to the oven mitt are on the inside. They're exposed, but you use pinking shears to trim them and they look neat and tidy. The great part about the oven mitt is the way it is constructed. You cut out the 3 templates from the pattern, place them on the wrong side of the print fabric and trace around them. Go ahead and cut out those 3 pieces on the trace line. You only cut 1 set of those templates and use them as a template to cut the others. So you have the template pieces, and instead of cutting the same shape for the batting, I like you to just cut a larger swatch piece like that, and then an even larger swatch piece for the other cotton print. You're going to adhere those together by using a spray adhesive. I do that instead of pins. I like this a lot better. And put the pieces in a box so that you don't get this adhesive spray in your work area. And then you just take it and quickly spray this piece. And try on this piece, try and spray around the edges, and as little a spray as you can get away with. And then go ahead and place that on your batting. Then you would pick up the next piece and just spray that all over and put that on the bigger piece. Always start with the smaller piece and work to the larger piece. So you do that with all the sets, the 3 sets of your oven mitt. Remember that on the mouthpiece you're going to want to put in 2 layers of batting in that one. Then you would take this arrangement to the sewing machine and baste around the edges. I like to use a zigzag stitch because it smashes the seam allowances down really well. And then you go ahead and cut that out. And don't worry about cutting the basting stitches. So once it's cut out, you have all 3 of these pieces that look like this, and you're ready to assemble your oven mitt. So you'd start out with the mouth piece and the underside piece and align those edges and sew them. I'm going to show you on the other piece exactly the best way to get that done as you align them, and just do it visually, getting them perfectly aligned together. And stick 1 pin right at the top center and sew down this side. Then take the pin out and sew down this side. And I think if you find you do it that way, they'll come out very evenly aligned. Now the last thing to do is going to be to put on this binding, and it's a little difficult if there is a hard part of the pattern. And some people might do it other ways, but I like to put the seam binding on this oven mitt in 2 steps. And the first step I'm going to be sewing on the inside of the oven mitt. So to do that, I turn the oven mitt to right side out so that I can get my sewing machine needle inside there easier than trying to sew it on the outside. It's just my particular preference, but you might find it differently for you. go ahead and prepare this strip of bias binding, and it does have to be on the bias because these are curved edges if you want it to take shape correctly. And fold a 1/4 inch hem on that all along, and also fold, if you can see it there, another 1/4 inch hem right at the beginning, and then begin to align the raw edges and sew that all the way around. When you get back to the beginning, you're going to have a little overlap. You might need to clip off a little bit because it's probably a little too long, but clip that off and then just sew the raw end over that folded beginning. Now you will take and fold that over the raw edges. That's why you had that pre-pressed hem already. Now I'm not going to invert it, but I'd again like to sew on the inside of the opening, so it would be wrong sides out to sew on the right side of the oven mitt. And this time you just sew right along that edge. That's your final seam. It's a top stitch seam, so make it look nice. Now again, right at this beginning, when you have the beginning and the end and all those little folds, it's hard to get it to look nice, but this little tool called a sewing stiletto, I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's a wonderful little tool. It's pointed, and you can take and put the point of it right into the feed dogs, right next to your needle, and hold all those little folds in place as you shove the little pieces through the feed dogs. It's a great tool, and it's wonderful if you're ever doing any binding on a project. It's so fun to make these oven mitts, and with all the foodie fabrics on the market, just think how much your friends and family will want you to make them an oven mitt.